I now recognize the ranking member for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. I will offer an A&S after the debate, but I don't think there's any questions about the Confucius Institute or the Chinese Communist Party. They both are bad. I think part of the challenge for us is, as we deal with the other aspects of doing away with everything, I think by saying no DHS funds will go to universities, there are some ongoing programs right now that our universities do in China that would be harmed. And I'm convinced that this legislation, in its current form, has some serious unintended consequences that some of my colleagues are trying to outline. But when you just draw the line saying no, I just think that is a bit too far. I yield to the gentleman from California, Mr. Correa.
Gentleman yields.
Thank you very much. I just, Mr. Pfluger, trying to work with you on this and trying to figure it out. Our counterintelligence needs to know what's going on in China. We've got to have some relationships. And coming out of the state of California, one of our biggest industries is the pharmaceutical industry. Got a lot of research and development, and a lot of that research and development university also kind of seeps over into China. A lot of research there as well. We need to know what they're doing and work with them, whether we want or not. We had COVID-19 and originated in China. We had to work with them to figure out the solution to this challenge. And so we have to fund university research, university ties with entities that we may not find palatable. So I'm just, help me out. I'm trying to work with how do we reconcile those kinds of scenarios with your legislation, sir?
Yeah, if you'll yield.
Of course.
Of course the schools claim that there's no threat, but every single one of us is invited down to the skiff to participate in the briefs.
And I'm not saying that there's not a...
Whether we show up or not, that's...
I'm not saying there's not a threat. I'm just saying there's certain
in the process of
Gentleman
deeming...
reclaims. Do you yield or?
Just very quickly, I'm not saying there's not any threats. I'm just trying to figure out how to wordsmith, how to, essentially work with your legislation to make it operative on these other circumstances. And go ahead.
Thank you.
Gentleman yields.
The fact is that when DHS works with the university to deem an entity of concern, I think they mean it. I think they actually say, we are concerned about this entity. And so I really don't see a reason to have a waiver when DHS says, we're concerned that this entity using military, that's one thing that you guys have not brought up. The definitions here all talk about civil-military fusion, military research, military applications. So that's the risk to national security that I think we're missing here. And Lou, the point of this is that we have access to briefs beyond what GAO is providing or beyond what the universities are talking about. And that's why this bill is written in the way it is, because it is a concern. I don't think there's a reason for a waiver. Unfortunately, we didn't get this done on the 117th. And so now is the time. I'll yield back.
I yield, Mr. Magaziner.
Gentleman yields to Mr. Magaziner. Well, actually, the time belongs to the ranking member.
Yes.
So listen,
Yields the balance of his time to Mr. Magaziner.
the definitions here are broader than, the definitions here, the applications here are broader than in the previous version, right? Because in the previous version, not all entities of concern were automatically denied funding without a waiver. So what we're trying to figure out is this version too broad? And as I understand it, this is not necessarily just limited to research related to military applications, right? The way the bill spells this out, if any university or college in China has any relationship with, the military complex in China, then U.S. universities would not be able to work with those universities, no matter what they're working on. So universities in the United States have departments that do lots of different things. You could have a university in the United States with an engineering department that's working with DOD and with other departments that are doing totally unrelated things. And I imagine the same is true in China, right? And so what we're saying under this version is that universities could not work with each other on totally unrelated things with no military application if they also have departments that work in the military space. Is that correct?